This is a sanding shelf that I built. It was built out of scrap wood that I had on hand. The size of it was actually built that size because that's what I had for scrap wood. I've got MDF, I've got 1/4 inch plywood, I've got 1/2 inch plywood, I've got rough plywood, and then good one side plywood. So what I want to do now is to build a wider shelf, have the top for the sanders, take out this shelf here, and then bump up where the sheets are stored as well as the orbital discs. And at the bottom, I want to have a drawer that'll hold accessories. This was an afterthought of putting the bin in here for accessories. At the top, I've also got a bin full of supplies as well as those random sheets that you never fully use. So I want to have that inserted in the drawer. And then I like my tools dust-free. I know some people like them on display. I'm gonna put a door on the shelf as well, and it'll just be a wider area, more spaced out. And then these sheets, I wanna have a slot for each size. They're just packed in here between 2 slots. Same with the orbital discs. I want each side to have their own compartment. I've just got 4 here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I've got my plywood. I'm gonna make some cuts and then I'll turn to dadoing the slots. Turns out I wasn't actually that ready. I began the next day, hence the wardrobe change. I don't know how YouTubers do this over multi-day builds where they keep the same outfit on through the whole video. I'm not that coordinated, so here we are. I've got my plywood cut to size, so I'm about to dado some grooves. So I've marked out every 2 1/8. I've marked a line. I'm just going to use my 1/4 inch straight bit to cut a 1/4 inch groove. And then what I'll do is I'll put 1/4 inch plywood in between. So this will be the bottom, this will be the top, and then I'll put the plywood in. And then I've got 6 different spaces for full sheets of sandpaper. And then over here will be where the orbital discs will go. So there'll be a wall stood up. And this will be the outside of the shelf. And then I'll have grooves dadoed as well, going vertical up. So I've got one board marked for the lines. I'll go ahead and just set up my router table fence. So I'll cut this one first and measure it up, and then I'll go ahead and do the same on the top shelf. I don't have a coping sled for this or any type of jig, but it is wide enough that I'm just gonna pass it through. Sometimes I put a block on the back to prevent tear, but this is shop furniture, pretty rough. The back will be on the back side of the shelf anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it a go. Here I am realizing that my router fence only goes so far. Both boards now have all the slots cut in them, so both have 5. I did run into one small issue, as I always do. So my T-track, my fence stopped at a certain point and I couldn't get the depth there. So I just switched it over to my wider T-track slots, which is why I installed them in the first place, and I was able to finish off the last 2. So these are done. This is the bottom, this is the top, and then I just measured in the full sheets of sandpaper and they fit pretty good. I've got all my dados cut, so I did the section for the sheets first, and then where the orbital discs will go over here to the right. This is actually the top section for the sanders, and then down below will be for the drawer. I've just got it sitting on edge just for layout. This middle part will come forward. I'll slide the plywood sheet in the back through a slot, and then there's an extra 3/4 inch space where I can put some plywood on the back to then screw it to the wall. I'm gonna lay some glue on the side panel. I like to put a piece of plywood in the slot just for stability. I'm gonna use these clamping squares, so let's get to it. Should put this on the edge of the plywood, but I like to do it this way. Just shop furniture once again. So I see people having trouble with pocket holes drilling through the wood. So aside from setting the collar on the bit for the depth, and then also the adjustment here, which is a common mistake. Aside from those two things, the third thing that I had a lot of success with was I just bought this simple Milwaukee M12 screwdriver. Since I got this, I never had a trouble drilling too far through the plywood. Actually, I've never driven through with this. So this has been my best tool for this operation. $17 to go. Okay, so I've got the two side panels set up, connected to the bottom piece with pocket holes and glue. Same thing with the bottom of the middle shelf. And then I installed this divider. I put a backer on this section here so that the orbital discs don't go so deep. That's what I didn't like about my old shelf. So put this backer piece in. I'm gonna put the top of the middle section on now. Make sure that the divider panel is square as well as the backer. So I'll put that top piece on, and then the very top of the shelf as well. Before I do that, before I put the top piece of the shelf on, I will slide in the backer plate through the grooves here that I also squared up. I find it's best if you use just a small piece of whatever the backer is and put it in the corners to make sure it lines up at the end. Because if you don't do that, then it's going to be pretty difficult to get the backer plate all the way down. So that's what I'm going to do now. Time to see if my math is mathing and my squares are square. Just give it a little nudge on the bottom, and it's in. So I just bought a 2x2 foot piece of plywood for this backer, and it didn't go, I think this is 28 inches. So what I did was I just cut it so it meet the middle of this 3/4 inch plywood. And then I have lots of extra 1/4 inch plywood sitting there that was too thin, but I can make it work this way. So I'll go ahead and cut a piece for the back for the top, and then we'll put on the actual top piece. And it's pretty much almost done for the carcass, and then we'll move to the door and the drawer. Minor problem. So it looks pretty good. Turn around, and I don't really care that the plywood is different colors. That's not the issue here. The issue is that I accounted for 1/4 inch on the top for the dado slot. However, I was supposed to take 1/4 inch off of it because the top piece does go between the two side pieces. So I just have to pull it out and then trim off 1/2 inch and reinsert. Okay, so I just trimmed down the piece of plywood. It now fits. I have the top put on. I did that last night. This morning I came out and put on these backing strips to be able to screw through into the studs. So pretty much it is complete. So what I'm gonna do right now is mill down some wood to be able to create the door, and then also some thinner strips to be able to put trim around it on the inside edges and the outsides, and then I will complete the drawer and this will be ready to go. I've got this CraftX Blue Tornado shaker set. It's a 1/2 inch shank. This is what I've used for 6 doors now, and they've turned out pretty good. It's got a nice profile on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut the stiles, and then I'll go ahead and cut the rails, and finally glue it up and put the panel inside. For my shaker doors, I have this CraftX set, Blue Tornado on a 1/2 inch shank. So I've used this for 6 doors already. This will obviously be the 7th plus the drawer. It's got a nice little profile on it. Cuts pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut the rails right now, and then I'll move into the stiles and finally insert the panel and do the glue up. So I don't have a coping sled, but what I do have is a squeeze clamp. Like most people, I have my gripper. I've got a square piece of plywood here. I don't know how big it is, maybe 10 by 10. And then that just sits behind the rail, prevents some tear out on the back end and keeps things stable. Go ahead with rail number 2. So I have the second bit set up, ready to cut my grooves. I did 4 test cuts to finally get everything level and fit properly. I did 2 on the side, 2 on this side, so I'm ready to go. I was able to get everything square. Glue up is finished, so I'm just going to take it off the clamps and then install hinges and make my way towards putting the frame on the Carcass and then the inserts. So I started to glue the face frame on, as you can see over here, and then I've got the second side over here on. I just wanted to install the door because once I put these inserts in, then I won't have room to screw on the hinges. So I just did that first, took a pause, put the door on, and then I can go ahead and put the inserts in. And then also on this shelf, there's gonna be a face frame. So once they're in there, I can't take them out. It's time to build the drawer. I'm just going to take some quick measurements here. I skipped over the table saw part, straight to the assembly. I'm just using a 1/2-inch plywood with some glue and then some brad nails. Sure, there's other ways for joinery for this drawer. I'm just looking forward to getting it done. This is the way I went with. I installed some wooden sliders as well over the metal ones that I usually use. Everything fits tight, but slides well. Final touch before I put on the front of the drawer, I'm going to install a knob here, just something small and simple. The drawer fronts on with glue, and then what I'll do once it dries is just screw it through the back, out with the old and in with the new. That's it for this one. If you do have any recommendations on any of the steps I took or easier ways to construct any of these doors or the cabinet in general, please leave the comments down below. I'll take a look at those. Always want to learn and get better. Build videos are hard to come by these days. If you like this one, please give it a like, and I'm going to start working on my next one.